The police went back to his house. They found his manifesto. He apparently had a couple of them, which were, according to the sheriff, just the work of a madman. I mean, the sheriff just said, I'm trying to quote here, but he said he was an absolute madman. He said he had his wits about him, quoting, "Manifesto is quite frankly the diary of a madman. He was just completely irrational. He was 100% lucid. He knew what he was doing, but he was a nutcase," right? So like his musings were all over the board, according to the sheriff, and yet they were very focused on race. And he did kill 3 Black community members down in Jacksonville. So DeSantis, this is of course Jacksonville, Florida. DeSantis shows up at the vigil that was being held for those who were killed, the victims, and they start booing him there. Then a councilwoman, a Democrat, gets up to defend him. So listen to this.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is here. We're going to ask the governor if he will come now and turn remarks.
Not going to allow these institutions to be targeted by people.
Hold on. Let me say this.
Thank you.
Okay, listen, y'all. Let me tell you, we finna put parties aside. Cause it ain't about parties today. A bullet don't know a party. So don't get me started. Now, y'all just be quiet just a minute and let the governor say what he gonna say.
Good for her. We'll get to the bad behavior that followed, but let's just pause on good for her, right? It's not about party today. God bless her. If only more people could go that route in the wake of these tragedies. Dave, your thoughts?
Yeah, it was really inspiring to see, and we don't see those kinds of inspiring moments in our politics very often, as you just mentioned about Joe Biden talking about this crisis in regard to the election, just being a jerk about it. This woman, I mean, he is a jerk, right? But I mean, this woman took it seriously and really made the point that we're all at risk from this, right? I mean, there are, we had the Nashville shooting with the trans manifesto. We have this shooting with a racist manifesto. We have all these people who are just going crazy in our society. We're in a very bad place with race, and we don't listen to each other. And really, I think more than anything, she was saying, show respect and listen. Let's listen to each other. And we don't do that very well as a society anymore. We call each other, we're very good at calling each other names. We're very good at blocking out information that we don't want to hear. But we're not very good at listening to the other side. So yeah, good for her. That was really, really good to see.
Right. Her name is Councilwoman Jacoby Pittman. And, she inserted herself, took the mic and told the folks there, be respectful, right? This isn't about party today, Stu. And I only wish that was the total reaction to DeSantis and this whole thing just because it happened in his state. That's, of course, not where it ended. I'll just give you a flavor before I get to the other messaging of how DeSantis, what his messaging was. It's kind of interesting. I'd love to get your reaction. Take a listen to SOT 6.
The fact of the matter is, you had a major league scumbag come from Clay County up here, and what he did is totally unacceptable in the state of Florida. We are not going to let people be targeted based on their race. You are not going to target HBCUs in the state of Florida and get away with it. We're going to hold you accountable. We're not going to let it happen.
HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. By the way, afterward, Jeffrey Rumlin, a pastor at the Dayspring Church in Jacksonville, took to the mic and said, respectfully, Governor, he was not a scumbag. He was a racist. Kind of interesting. There's no question this guy had racist rantings in his manifesto, but there's also a serious question about whether were those just the racist ramblings of some madman who just hated everybody and decided that, we've seen this before where they just decide to turn their lunacy on one particular group of people at the end. Or is this somebody who was bred and born, racist his whole life and this is all about his racism? It seems from what we've heard so far, it was the former. But I don't know. You tell me, Stu. I thought the governor's tone was maybe a little off for this particular setting. But that's, DeSantis isn't really the touchy-feely kind.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think, and we will learn everything, I'm sure, about this killer and everything that he's ever thought and every bad thing he's ever said. And he was from all reporting, an absolutely horrible human being. I don't necessarily the distinction between racist and scumbag, not much of a distinction to me. If you're a racist, you're a scumbag. So I mean, it kind of means the same thing to me. I guess if you're a scumbag, you're not necessarily a racist. So there's some separation, but I don't know that it's all that important of a distinction. I do think that, it's interesting to watch this because you do see with the woman you spoke of earlier, taking a across the party aisle sort of stance and saying, hey, don't boo the governor, let him say what he's going to say. And that's an overt example of it. Like booing a Republican just because he's a Republican in a moment like this is an overt example of that sort of bias. But like we're seeing in the reporting on this story, a much more subtle version. I mean, I have to say, like, a loss of 3 people is incredibly tragic. And it's terrible that this could possibly happen in this country or any country. But you have to think that if it was one white person killing 3 white people, we probably wouldn't even be aware of the story today, would not be a national story. If the story didn't happen in Florida, we probably wouldn't have had this story because of this DeSantis tie. The racism motivations, look, they're important to understand. Anytime there's a murder like this, you need to know something about the motivation so you can try to prevent them going forward. But if it was something else, if it was a gang incident, I mean, these things probably happened in 6 or 7 other spots this weekend, and we didn't hear anything about it. And that is the same type of bias. It's the same bias as booing a governor standing in front of you. It's the exact same thing. They're utilizing this for political purposes. They're using this tragedy to their own ends in the media, and that needs to be called out just as much as the people booing in the crowd.
Well, we just went a quick Google search, and just last month, July of 2023, there was a suspect in Georgia, a mass shooting that killed 4 people. The suspect is Black. All victims were white. And of course, the mother later said the suspect had needed mental help for nearly a decade, but they couldn't force him to get treatment. That got almost no coverage, right? Where the shooter was Black and the 4 victims were white. But did not see wall-to-wall coverage on that at all. Now you've got Tulsa, Oklahoma, just a couple months before that, in April 2023, Black man charged with murder in possible hate crime after shooting 2 white strangers in the back of the head. Authorities in Tulsa investigating whether this Black man who went in and killed 2 men was because of their race. They said he allegedly murdered the 2 strangers he had no connection with by going into the public library at 9:40 a.m., walked up behind one poor man and shot him right in the back of the head while the guy was just sitting there in the library, and then went to a nearby Quick Trip convenience store, allegedly shot James McDaniel, another victim, in the back of the head. Charged with murder. But again, this wasn't everywhere, despite the horrific circumstances. I mean, this is horrible because the race of the perpetrator and the victims didn't line up. Same situation down in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. In April, 1 victim here, but the murder was motivated by race. They arrested a 23-year-old and a 25-year-old in connection with the murder of a white victim who was shot and killed while installing his mailbox outside of his home, or a mailbox. The bullet went through his back and out his chest. Under questioning, one of the defendants, who were Black, said that they wanted to kill a white person. Well, I didn't see that everywhere. I didn't see wall-to-wall coverage like we saw this weekend of this, because it didn't happen in Florida, where the sitting governor has, a decent chance, I guess, if Trump decides to quit, of winning the Republican nomination. And I don't want to racialize any of these unnecessarily, but it's what the left instinctively does. And I realize this guy said in his manifesto that he had hatred for Blacks. But to elevate this like it's indicative of who we are is a lie still.
It is absolutely a lie. And it's so common. I think we're just all used to it, and we should completely reject it. There was a time where it felt like this was fading away. And I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I remember thinking that this was just nonsense. I mean, racism was a literal joke. You would make fun of people for anyone who expressed anything like this would be a joke. You go back to the mid 2000s, polls showed about 72 or I think it was 72% of Americans believed racial relations were in a good place. And that included the overwhelming majority of African Americans who also believed that. It wasn't just white people saying it was good and not understanding the truth about it. And since then, we decided to apply this new medication where we're going to instead say, okay, well, let's change up the format. Let's get rid of that old MLK vaccine and let's put on the Ibram X. Kendi vaccine and see how that one works. And this one's going to instead say, well, all white people are racist no matter what they say, and all black people are victims and are incapable of accomplishing anything with the white man in the way. And let's just test that one out on a society and see how that goes. And the polls have changed completely.
I'll tell you who the unsung heroes of COVID are. Of course, the frontline workers. But what about those business owners who hung in there and paid their employees? If you stayed open and paid your people, you could be eligible for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. $26,000 per employee. This is not a loan. You don't have to pay it back. These are government funds that are available right now. All types of businesses, including nonprofits and churches, can be eligible, but you need to apply now because Congress may pull the funds. COVIDTaxRelief.org has helped tens of thousands of businesses just like yours, and they have secured over $500 million. Unlike others, they charge nothing up front. They do all the work and share a percentage of the cash they get you. You did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. Now let COVIDTaxRelief.org help you get up to $26,000 per employee. Visit COVIDTaxRelief.org. 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 Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.